All right, here we go. I'm Carrie Davidson. I am the exercise physiologist and Move Well Fitness Manager here for UK Health and Wellness. We're part of your benefits package. If you don't know who we are, then I encourage you to go to our website, which is on the bottom of every slide, and check out all the different benefits that you have to you and your spouse. So here's where we're going to go today. We're going to talk about, I'm going to use movement and exercise interchangeably. You're going to hear me do that, and physical activity is probably going to get thrown in there too. For today's purposes, they're going to get interchanged. But we're going to talk about how exercise affects well-being, exercise and sleep, exercise and nutrition, exercise and stress. There will be other presentations in this series. If you've been coming to all the well-being series, there are going to be other presentations specifically on sleep and specifically on stress, and the nutrition one already happened, so it'll be available for download if you want to look at that later. So I'm only going to hit those topics in a small way, but this is where we're headed. So I want to first talk to you about functional movement. So functional movement is anything that mimics something that we do in our daily life. So I've put a few examples here. Squatting is a sit down, stand up. A row or a bench press is a push or a pull. So these are things that we do every day. We push stuff, we pull stuff, we sit down, we get up, we pick things up off the ground. So these are functional movements, things that mimic the things that we do in everyday life. So we're going to get into more details about that in just a second. The other thing I want to talk about is compound movements. So a compound movement covers more than one muscle group or more than one joint, really. So the guy over there on the right, he's sitting down. The only joint that's moving is his knee, right? The only thing that's moving is his knee. The only muscle that he's working is his quadricep. It's a great exercise, but it isolates that one muscle group, the quadriceps. A compound exercise, on the other hand, covers more than one joint, so we have more muscles involved, right? So a squat, he's got the bar, he's doing a back squat, he's got the barbell on his shoulders, so his core is engaged. He's hinging at the hips, he's bending at the knees, so he's got his core engaged, his glutes, his hamstrings, his quads, everything's working. So that's a compound exercise. So if you're thinking about like time saving and things like that, then a compound exercise is the way to go because you're going to get more bang for your buck with the time. So the things that we're going to talk about today are going to combine functional and compound movements. And so again, this is move well to live well. So how can we get the activity in? How can we do the right activities? How can we make our lives the best lives that we can have? How can we live well? So we're going to start with a squat. And for some reason, when you say squat or you say deadlift, people are like, oh, scary, right? And you like have already a screen that goes up because you may not know what that is, or you think it's too hard, or you have to do it in a gym. But how many of you do this? Sit at your computer. Yes, anyone? Everyone? She's on a ball, but this could be a chair. You're all sitting right now, so every hand ought to go up. How many of you do this? You sit in a car, right? How many of you do this? Yes, everyone does. So we're all sitting and standing every day, and that's exactly what a squat is. We sit down and we get up a lot during the day. So that's all a squat is. There's all kinds of squats. You can do back squat, front squat, goblet squat. There's all kinds of different ways to weight that or to load that, but we all do it every day. So if we are good at it and we have strong muscles and strong bones surrounding these joints, all those compound movements that we talked about, then we're good for this movement for life. So squats are important. All right, next one is going to be a row. All right, so he's got his arms forward, his back is straight, and then he's going to pull that weight to him, squeezing his shoulder blades together. All right, so this is a good pulling exercise. How many of you open a door in a day? You pull. Okay, super. Everybody, 100% of the people open a door. How many of you pick something up? Yes. So she's bending down to pick something up, but we could flip her around, and then she looks just like the guy on the row machine. All right, so we pick stuff up every day. We use our shoulder blades. And this movement in particular, if you do a lot of computer, if you do a lot of driving, anything that puts you in that forward reach position, keyboard, steering wheel, anything in that forward reach position, you're likely weak in those back muscles, those upper back muscles anyway. So squeezing, even without a load, even without a weight, if we just squeeze the shoulder blades, that's the opposite of what we're doing in our day. And so as humans, we weren't designed to sit at a computer all day. And so that makes us a little weak and a little tight in the front, and it makes us a little overstretched and very weak in the back. So this is something that we should be doing all the time anyway, even though we still open doors, we pick stuff up, we need to be squeezing, opening the chest, tightening the shoulder blades. That's an extra for today. All right, the next one I want to talk about is a bench press. Yes, this guy looks scary. He's on a bench and he has a lot of weight and he doesn't even have a shirt on, and yeah, it's scary, but he's just pushing. He's just pushing something away. That's all he's doing, right? And there's lots of different ways to do a bench press, but do you shut a car door? Then you're pushing. Do you push somebody on a swing or a wheelchair or a grocery cart or a stroller? Then you're pushing. So these are things that we do every day, and there are exercises that we can do in the gym or at home or wherever to mimic those things that we do every day, those functional exercises, and they're compound movements. So we're getting lots of good muscle recruitment with each of those exercises. Okay, the last one that I want to talk about is a deadlift, and this might be like the scariest one of all, right? 'Cause again, there's a big dude with lots of muscles and he's got a heavy bar and whatever. So he's doing a deadlift, just sort of traditional bent knee deadlift. But really all he's doing is picking something up. So do you pick something up in the day, right? I am a mother. I have 3 children. My littlest one is 2.5. I pick him up all the time. Now he's 2.5 and he's kind of chunky. And so there's no way I could just bend over and pick him up. I have to get down there and get him or he's not coming up. So regardless if it's a child or a thing, right, you can pick up a box, you can pick up a bag of feed or a bag of dirt or groceries or a box of files or mailings or whatever it is that you do in your job and in your life, you're going to pick something up at some point. So really the only difference, I want to go back to the row, the only difference in what she's doing over here on the right side is that she's lifting something light. She has a nice hip hinge, which we'll talk about in a second with the deadlift again. But really what she's going to do is squeeze those shoulder blades. Remember, this one's all about those shoulder blades and squeezing in the back. Now, fast forward back up to that deadlift. This is picking up something also, but this is picking up something that's heavy. More than like a pencil or a sock or a toy, okay? Something that's heavy. All right, and so he has a nice hip hinge. She has a nice hip hinge. Do I have a pointer? I do. Look, she has a hip hinge. He has a nice hip hinge. This guy or girl here has a nice hip hinge as well. So anytime that we're going to pick something up, whether it's light or heavy, we want to have a hip hinge. So I'm going to stand in my soapbox for just a minute. This is also bonus. It's not built into the presentation. All right, we have vertebrae, which we're going to talk about those again in a minute. They're little bones. They're a column up and down our back. And there's little discs in between each one of them. They're like little soft pads, little jelly pads, sort of. And those are not made to take a big load. They're little bones. They're attached to big muscles, but the big muscles that they're attached to are really made for endurance, for holding us up, for breathing in and out, made for endurance, made for long duration, but very little weight. So that's not the way we want to lift something, is with the back. We always want to put the load where the load belongs. And so we have a big old femur, the bone right in your upper leg. We have big old hips. We got big old muscles attached to them. We got quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes. Those are our biggest muscles. They're made to take the biggest load. So put the load where the load belongs. When you pick something up, hinge at the hips. Now I'm working these muscles in the legs and hips to pick it up. All right, that's my extra soapbox for today, hip hinge. If you take nothing else away today, hinge when you pick something up, hinge at the hip. So that's my thing for today. All right, so all of these exercises train us to do the things that we do every day. All these exercises train us to go about our life. So when an athlete trains for his or her sport, if they're a football player, they don't go run track. Or if they're a baseball player, they don't go play football to train. You train for your sport. So if it's a power sport, you need to get strong. If it's an endurance sport, you need to train for endurance, right? So we want to train for our sport, and our sport is life. We work, maybe we do play some games or some extracurricular activities, but life and work, whatever that is that looks like that for us, this is what we're training for. So we are training for life, training to live well. And so part of our life is at work, or you wouldn't be here, or you wouldn't be online maybe. Part of our life is work. And as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, some of us have to sit for longer periods of time than our bodies were really designed to do. And so if you find yourself sitting, there are some things that you can do at work so that you're in a better position and you don't end up injured or with pain of any sort, but that you can end up still in a good place. And so these are the things I want you to notice right now. So the skeleton on the right Again, let's look at this hip angle. They have almost 90-degree angle on the hips, almost 90 degrees in the knees, almost 90 degrees in the elbows, right? So their spine's all stacked up. Everything's nice and neutral. They've maybe had an ergonomic assessment of their workstation, and it's all where it should be. So by the way, if you are unsure about your workstation and if it feels uncomfortable or you're starting to have pain from being there, you can call the office Occupational Health and Safety, and they will do a free ergonomic assessment of your workstation, whatever that looks like, sitting, standing, labs, whatever that looks like. They'll come and do those for you and make recommendations and help you to get the resources that you need. Again, sidebar. The guy on the left, or the skeleton on the left, this is how we are all going to end up, with a chicken head scooting out forward, with a kyphotic or rounded upper back. His elbows are way more than 90 degrees. He's got a really acute angle here. Maybe his hips are okay and his knees are okay, but everything from the hips up is a mess. So we definitely want to make sure that if we're going to be sitting for long periods of time, that we want to be sitting more like this skeleton on the right. Now, maybe you do have maybe a standing desk, or you stand at your workstation, or you have a high counter that you work on, or a lab or something like that. So if you're standing a lot in your day, then these are the same sort of requirements. He's still going to have his elbows at 90, and everything is going to be in a line. So just like a string of pearls, if I had a string of pearls and I dropped it straight down, you can see it would flow just like his spine, just like his backbone. So the only difference really with standing is your pelvis. So again, we've talked about the hip hinge now quite a bit, but this guy or girl, if you're standing, I want you to think about your pelvis sits like a bowl, and if your bowl is full of water and you tucked your tailbone under, you're going to dump that water right out the back. And if you tip your belly button forward and push your tailbone back, you're going to dump that water right out the front. That's what this, see, she's dumping her water right out the front, and now she's dumping it right out the back, and then one in the middle is neutral. And so some of us, just by nature, we tend to walk around like this. So it doesn't look bad, but I'm dumping the water out the back. Or we tend to walk around, it's hard for me to do, tend to walk around the other way, right, with our tail sticking out. And now we're dumping the water out the front. So we just naturally sometimes do that. I happen to be this person. I just tend to stand like that. I happen just to dump the water out the back. So if you are standing, then you can at least try to be mindful of where your pelvic bowl is and try to hold that in neutral. So if you've ever taken a yoga class, your instructor is probably hammering on this all throughout. But really what we want to do is make sure that our ears are over our shoulders are over our hips, and our hips are over our ankles. So all our joints are in one nice line. So that if you go back to the skeleton here on the left, he's also got a chicken neck, right? Because we're looking at the screen. Maybe at the start of the day, you're in alignment, but by the end of the day, your muscles are tired and your eyes are tired, and so you get closer to your screen, and so you end up that way. So definitely want to pull that neck back. So at work, even if you're sitting, even if you're standing, we can at least be mindful of our posture so that we are helping ourselves and not hurting ourselves. All right, so here are some ideas to move well at work. Move your printer. So I don't know about your department, but in our department, we have a couple of common printers. We save trees, we save energy, right, for the university, and we all get more steps because we have to walk somewhere to go get our print if we've printed something. So I have to walk almost to another building if I want to print something, which is great. It keeps me from printing if I don't have to, but then it also gets me steps. So even if I'm charging my device that I wear on my arm, you better believe I put that thing on before I go get my print and then come back and take it and put it back on that charger because I want those steps to count. So move your printer. You can stand up when your phone rings. That's really just an auditory cue. Whatever auditory cue that you want to use, whatever you hear a lot in your day, maybe it's a certain noise at work or a certain noise at home, a beep or a chime or something like that, some sort of auditory cue that's going to remind you to get up and move around. So most of us have a phone, most of us sit, so I tend to use this one, stand up when your phone rings. It's just, it changes your position. Set a reminder on your calendar. So you can, if you use Outlook, or I'm sure there's lots of apps for this, you can do it on your phone, but set a timer on your computer during the workday when you're typically sitting for long periods of time to get up every hour. And you don't have to do anything necessarily. Go for a drink, go for a walk, go talk to a coworker, walk around your office, do a couple stretches. Just get up every hour. If you like the fancier apps and things like that, then you can download stretchclock.com. I've got the website there. Oh, look, his face is over it. Sorry about that. Stretchclock.com. And it's a little widget that'll download onto your computer, and you can set it for whatever time you like. I recommend every hour if you're going to be sitting for part of your day, to go off, and it'll just open up your default browser, whatever that is, and it's a guy standing by a lake in a shirt and tie, and he'll lead you on a stretch for about 60 seconds. So it doesn't take long. You set it to go off, and it just pops up. So sometimes when you're in the zone, when you're working on something and an alarm goes off, you snooze it, right? Or you dismiss it, snooze, dismiss. But if something pops up in front of your eyeballs, then you're more likely to do it. So it might just be at the beginning to make sure that you're doing those things. Walking meetings. We love walking meetings in our department. We do this a lot. Sometimes we walk to Starbucks, but nevertheless, we walk and have meetings. So not only is it, getting you from point A to point B, but it can boost some creativity. So if you have a problem at work, you're working on something, sometimes I'm working on a reconcile or something, and I'm off and I can't get it, and I've done it 3 times, I need to walk away. If I walk away and come back, then I look at it with fresh eyes, then I come up with a solution. And the same is true for, work-wide problems. If you guys are looking for something to be creative, if you're looking for a solution to a problem, get out of the box of your office, get out of the box and go walk somewhere, and then come back and see if you're not re-energized and have some new ideas. Less email. Sign me up for less email. So if you can go next door and talk to your coworker, go to the next building and talk to your coworker. If it can save an email, please save an email. Whether it's from my inbox or someone else's, less email. Park at the stadium. Now, I want to say that we have an attitude, and I say we collectively, which is a lot of people, that parking is terrible on UK's campus. It's expensive and it's hard to find and it's just far away and it's awful. But I want to say, is that bad? Yes, it's expensive. I get that, but it is at most places. Are they not helping us to get more steps in during the day? Park as far away as you possibly can. Build in that 10 minutes into your morning and into your evening, and you've got 20 minutes of steps and exercise that you didn't have before. Thank you, UK, for offering such wonderful parking. And then walk on your break. I'm sure all of us take breaks all through the day. But anytime that you do have a break, again, whether it's a scheduled break where you clock out and clock back in, or a lunch break, or just if you're going to take 5 minutes, just go take a walk. Walk around the building. If you've got stairs, go up and down the stairs a couple times. If you're going to use the restroom, go to the one on a different floor. Try to find excuses, right? We want to change our attitude. Try to find excuses to walk or to move during the day. So I want to tell you that there has been some recent research out that tells us, 2 articles in particular in the last decade, and I can send those to you if you're interested, that did some testing. The first one was on men, and then the second one was on both men and women. But what it demonstrated for us was, if you drive and you sit and you sleep for 23 hours a day, so you're sedentary for 23 hours of the day, but for 1 hour, you go to the gym and you work really hard and you sweat it out, you still have a higher risk of morbidity and mortality than the people who never go to the gym, never get hard and sweaty, but they get up all during the day. They get up and they move and they sit down, and then they get up and they move something and they push something and they pull something and they bend down and get something up. They never go to the gym. They never get hot and sweaty. These people had a lower BMI, a lower waist circumference, and lower triglycerides. So that's good news for us. I'm not saying the gym is not important because of all those things we've already talked about. Those functional movements, those compound movements that we need to do to train for life. Those things are important, but it's also important to be an active person, just to get up and move during the day. It's good news, right? Good news. So we don't want our day to look like this, with this hot and sweaty peak 1 hour and the other 23 hours are flat. We want to be up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down all the time. And if you are wearing a device, or if you carry a phone that measures your steps, you likely can see this same sort of grid on yourself. So that might be something that you want to take a look at and see, gosh, I tend to sit a lot in the morning, or I tend to sit a lot in the evening, or whatever time that is for you. I tend to sit for longer hours than I want to. And that might be a good place to start, with just finding more ways to get up and down and move up and down. All right. Any questions so far before I move on to sleep? All right. Very good. So exercise and sleep. Like I said, we're going to have a presentation later on in the series that talks a lot and in depth about sleep. So I'm only going to talk about the ways that sleep and exercise interact. Okay? The way that sleep and exercise interact. So there is some thought out there that says, if I exercise right before bed, I'll be so tired, I'll just go to sleep and sleep really well. But in reality, that's not necessarily true, because of our circadian rhythm, our natural rhythm of our life. The sun goes down and it gets dark. The evening temperatures are usually cooler. And that's the one that's specific to this thermogenic hypothesis, is that in the evening time, our body temperature starts to cool because it's getting us ready for sleep, so that because we want to sleep cooler than we are during the day. So our body naturally does that. Now, if we exercise and get really hot and sweaty before bed, then we've just sort of X'd out nature, right? We haven't allowed our body to get cooler and to drift off into sleep naturally like we want to. So really, it's only for poor sleep. If you want to exercise right before bed, that's going to give you poor sleep, not better sleep. The other aspect of that is at night is when our body does all sort of restorative things and conservative things, right? Our cells will repair themselves. If we're sick, that's when we do a lot of healing. That's when our subconscious and our mind does a lot of prep work and lets things go that we don't need to hold on to, and files stuff in long-term memory that we need to hold on to, and all those kind of things. So we don't want to mess that up either. So we don't want to mess up all the healing and restorative things that our body's doing at night during sleep. So exercise is important, but it only is good at certain points if we're thinking about sleep too. So we'll get into that in just a second. But specifically, high intensity can be disruptive to our sleep. So if you're going to do some high intensity stuff, you might consider doing that earlier in your day. So things that affect both exercise and sleep, and these are sort of cyclical, and I'm going to show you how. So motivation. If we sleep better, then we're more motivated during the day to do some exercise. But if we're not very motivated during the day to do any exercise, then later on, after so many hours, we may not get into that good sleep groove either. Mood. If we are in a bad mood, we may go, hey, I'm going to skip it today. I'm not going to exercise. I'm not going to get up. I'm just going to be a couch potato today because I'm not in a good mood. But when we sleep better, we have a better mood. And so if we sleep better, have a better mood, then we're more likely to exercise during the day. And it's all sort of a cyclical pattern. The same thing with our lifestyle. So people who have healthier life habits, they have good nutrition, their alcohol, caffeine consumption, all those things are in moderation. Those people who have healthier habits are shown to sleep better and have better exercise habits too. So they always go hand in hand. So general well-being really is the thing here. So is exercise before sleep really better or worse? So is it going to make us drift off like this guy, or have our eyeballs boinging open like this guy? So there are lots of factors to consider with exercise and sleep. Age is one thing. We start out, as infants needing way more sleep than we do when we are getting ready to retire. Or maybe we're in our 70s or 80s, we need less sleep. So as the lifespan goes, we need less and less sleep. So our age plays a role for sure. Our fitness level plays a role for sure. The type of exercise. So I've looked into a lot of the studies on sleep and exercise, and it really doesn't matter if it's aerobic or anaerobic. So if it's, a cardiovascular activity or a strength training activity, the type of exercise is not necessarily going to matter. But if you're going to be doing that high intensity business, we don't want you to do that before bed, because that's not going to offer you any better sleep. The light. So maybe if you are a shift worker, and the light is sort of playing havoc on your circadian rhythm, then that's going to affect both your sleep and your exercise. So then there's some things that you can do, and I'm sure the sleep talk will get into that some. But the light tends to wake our brains up, wake our bodies up, and then the dark tends to make our bodies go to sleep, make our brains go to sleep. And then our regular sleep quality. So all those things are going to matter. So the bottom line here, as far as timing goes with exercise and sleep, is we want to do it at least 5 or 6 hours before bed, but no closer to bedtime than 3 hours before. So if you go to bed at 10 o'clock, you don't want to exercise after 7, right? 3 hours before. That's the minimum, right? I don't know what time you go to bed, but you can do the math. All right. Aerobic endurance and acute exercises that last longer than an hour are going to be more sleep-inducing than the high intensity. So avoid exhausting exercise, the high intensity, long duration. If you're training for a marathon, don't do your long run at night. That's not going to help your sleep at all. It's not going to benefit you. So exercise and sleep, they do play a role together, but we'll talk more about sleep in the other presentation. All right. Any questions about sleep and exercise? Good. All right. Exercise and nutrition. So if you drive a car, would you put dirty fuel in your car? Most likely not. going to wreak havoc on our, I don't know, carburetor and our engine and all the things that are inside of our car. I don't even know what's inside of our car. All right, but what we want to do is we want to think about our bodies like our car. We want to fuel our bodies for life. So good nutrition is like good fuel for our bodies. So same difference. We wouldn't put dirty fuel into our car, so why would we put dirty fuel into our bodies? It's one way to think about it. So regardless of all the enormous amounts of nutrition information out there, a good rule is put good food in to have the best outcome, just like your car. And so there's some key points that I want to go over here. So keeping your blood sugar stable. If you think about sleeping at night, so you slept for 6 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours if you're lucky, right? 6 hours at night, you haven't had anything to eat in 6 or 8 hours, and you've probably not eaten right before bed, so it's probably more close to 10 or 12 hours. And so your blood sugar's pretty tanked, right? You're pretty much at the bottom there. You don't have a lot of glucose floating around in the blood. And we know that glucose is the calories that wakes our brain up, and our muscles use it to contract and relax. And so one thing that we want to do is keep our blood sugar stable. So we want to make sure that we're eating at regular intervals so that that blood sugar can stay relatively flat. We don't want it to spike. So maybe we have some candy, right? We have some really simple carbohydrates or something like that, and we spike and then we're all buzzed, right? Like we said, kids have had too much sugar, they get all buzzed up and energy, and then they crash. And then they can hardly put one foot in front of another because your blood sugar is tanked. So it's important to make sure that we're eating at regular intervals so that we stay relatively in the middle. So keep your blood sugar stable. And then avoid what hurts. So if you have a food allergy, or if you know that a certain food gives you indigestion, or a certain food just doesn't agree with you, then avoid those foods. There are lots of other foods out in the world. You don't have to necessarily eat what you don't like or eat what hurts your body just because. And if you have really specific questions, then you can go see one of our dietitians. They can definitely help you with food allergies or just food information at all. But avoid what hurts. And then protein. So we want to make sure that we're getting enough protein. And you know, if you are the American who eats burgers at every meal and all that kind of thing, then you're probably getting plenty of protein. But my guess is, if you're listening into this talk today, you have an inclination of wanting to be healthy, and so you're probably doing some better nutrition choices than having greasy burgers at every meal. And so protein might be a thing. So protein are the building blocks of muscles. So if we are going to be working our muscles, we want to make sure we've got the protein to help that building process, because they're the building blocks. So protein is important. That's all I'm going to say about nutrition. As I said, the nutrition and well-being presentation was just a few weeks ago, and you can find it online if that's something that you're interested in. Any questions about nutrition? Good. All right. We're doing good. Exercise and stress. So there is so much research out there, and there is so much information that I am just going to give you bare bones today of how exercise and stress interact. So psychophysical effects. So psycho in the head, physical in the body. How the head and the body, how they come together and how they interact. And so we know, there's been lots of research, that exercise can help with stress reduction. It's not the only thing that helps with stress reduction, but we know that it's proven exercise helps with stress reduction. And anxiety, that's what that next one is. Anxiety can help to reduce our anxiety. And stress, anxiety, depression, those are all different things, very different things, and so it can help. Mood elevation, and I'm going to get into that in just a little bit with the mood elevation. Reduced pain perception, which we'll talk about more as well. Depression. Stress response, just having the central nervous system make a response. Self-esteem and body image. So all of these things, you can probably see pretty easily how those things connect. Exercise and then these sort of stress or head things. So we have endorphins. Let's go back here for a second. We have endorphins, and you've heard of the runner's high, right? Yes, give me some nods. All right, some people, yeah, okay. So the runner's high, let's talk about that for just a second. So what happens with the runner's high is that when we exercise, we have an increase in endorphins. And we know that because we put people in labs and we make them exercise, and then we take their blood and we can see it, right? And so the endorphins are peripheral, right? They're sort of away from the center, away from the heart, away from the brain. We can see those in the periphery. And then we have serotonin. So that is another thing that affects our mood. So serotonin is what makes the connection in the brain for mood enhancing. Okay, now I've put opioids on there, and you're probably thinking, yes, we have an opioid epidemic, especially in Kentucky. Yes, we do. But you also have opioid receptors, and you make those things in your brain. That's important. So endorphins, endorphins, I'm pushing the wrong button every time. Serotonin, and then opioids, different things. Serotonin is a mood enhancer. Endorphins are that runner's high business, which is going to affect our mood, but then also what we do after that and our decisions and our behavior. Opioids are a pain relieving mechanism or a pain reduction chemical in the brain. And so all of those things are important. And guess what? The more we exercise, the more we have all of these things. And the great thing about the opioid transmission is that happens in the frontal cortex of our brain, which is the mood control center of our body. So it happens in the blood, so it goes out, and it happens in the brain, so it stays central. So exercise, the runner's high, I hope that's all coming together for you now. The BDNF protein, it's a protein that is also in the brain, and it helps to regulate all of these other things to make sure everything's swimming along the way it should, making the connections the way it should. And they also increase with exercise. So we want to make sure that we're getting in at least our recommended guidelines, at least a few minutes every day of some sort of exercise, not only for our body, but for our stress and for our sleep as well. So like I said, there are lots and lots of information, lots of research about stress and exercise, but the brain and behavior and biochemistry all play a part, and it's very hard to untangle all of those things. So they're pretty much all wrapped up into one. So again, what I want you to remember for today is that we train for life, or we want to train for life. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be in the gym getting sweaty. That's important. We should do that. But it does mean that we ought to get up and move around as often as we can to have the best chance of low triglycerides, low BMI, lower risk of mortality and morbidity. And then we want to exercise at least 3 hours before bed. That's the takeaway from the sleep part, right? And then eat well to move well. We're going to eat to fuel our car. So our body is our car. We're going to eat to fuel what we want our body to do. So that's that. And then be well to move well. So all those brain chemicals increase with exercise. So give yourself the best chance of a good mood, of high motivation, of good self-esteem, of lowering your anxiety and your stress by doing some exercise. And so those are your 3 main areas and your 3 main takeaways. Here are some references. And then the other thing I want to mention is if you want more, I sort of skimmed the surface here today of all the different topics. And if you want more information on nutrition, then you can go see any of our dietitians for free. You can meet them on the phone, you can meet them in person, you can meet them over email. We're pretty flexible. Go to your dashboard, request a nutrition consult. If you want more information on exercise, I can talk all day long about exercise. We can talk about your goals. We can talk about your program. We can talk about how this is going to fit into your life because you already have 24 hours worth of stuff to do. Come see me. Come see Ryan. He's the other exercise physiologist that we have. Again, get on your dashboard, request that exercise consult. It's free. We can do it in any of those modes too, phone, email, any of the in person, any of those things. And then finally, we also have 2 health coaches that you can get with too for a consult or for long-term coaching, for health coaching. So if you have a goal already and you just need some support, some deeper support to help you reach those goals, then health coaching might be something that you look into. Again, all of those are free for our employees and our spouses and our retirees. So, all right, I talked a little bit longer than I should have, but we have a few minutes here if you guys have any questions or the folks online have any questions. The question is, while sitting at the desk, he has a habit of crossing his legs somehow for long periods of time. And how do we combat that, right? So here, let me ask you this question. Do you know what kind of learner you are? Are you an auditory learner? Do you hear things and it makes total sense? Do you have to see it and do it? You're a kinesthetic learner? Okay. Or a visual learner maybe? So then what you're going to want to do is to make some sort of thing pop into your view, right? Because you need to see it. So download stretch clocks. Download something that's going to pop into your view, because I know you are working away and you're getting caught in the moment. And so when you see that pop into your view, that's going to be your cue to undo, untwist, unwiggle, get up, get down, do whatever you need to do to uncross. So you're going to need a visual cue. That's my suggestion. Yeah. Was the ergonomic assessment that I mentioned through Occupational Health and Safety. Where is that located? They have their own webpage. They're separate from us. We work together on some things, but they're separate. So you can go to the Occupational Health and Safety, their website, and they have a whole section on ergonomics. And if you do the drop down, it says get an assessment, and they'll come. Melissa Clark is the person who usually comes and does those. And so yeah, on their website. You're the consult, like I said. So Ryan's office is over at Export. I'm over at Seton. So you can sign up for a consult. That's free. Anybody can do it anytime. We try to make the best accommodations that we have to, if people need to meet really early in the morning or really late in the evening, we try to do the best that we can with that. But it's about an hour, and it can look like anything. We can talk about anything. We can go through exercises. Maybe you say, I have a gym out and 3 counties over, and that's where I work out. Can you tell me what I ought to do? Sure. Maybe you have an injury or a special condition and you just want to talk about that. Maybe you want to figure out how to work it into your day. We talk about all sorts of things in a consult. So that's definitely a thing. You can sign up for it on your dashboard. There's an intake form, and then we'll work with you to get it scheduled. Another option is if you are a MoveWell member. So we have 2 fitness facilities on campus. A MoveWell membership is $7 a month, payroll deduction, super cheap. If you're a MoveWell member, then you also can get a free training session with any of the trainers. So that's going to be any of my staff trainers that work at the facilities. They're all certified trainers. So you can meet with them for an hour, one-on-one, in your gym clothes, in the gym. They're going to take you through a program. Like, they're going to take you through a workout. They're going to teach you how to use it, make sure that you understand what you're doing, show you how to progress it when it's ready. And then maybe in 6 weeks, you're going to come back, or 4 weeks or 6 months, or whatever that time frame looks like for you. You can always come back. But they are always on staff too, just for you to ask questions if you're in there doing your thing, and they're there if you have a question. But yes, you can meet with them, do a training session. And again, that's on your dashboard. You go to your MoveWell membership and sign up for training session. Yep. The question is, do we take into account mental health when we are working with a person, whether it be nutrition or physical activity or whatever? Do we take mental health into account? And the answer is yes. So if you've been to our website or if you've been on your dashboard, you'll see we do everything in sort of these 3 buckets: eat well, move well, be well. And so if you, as far as the mental health goes, if you have an issue that you really want to do therapy for, that is not us. But questions for a nutrition consult or an exercise consult, or the Be Well consults as well. There are questions in there about if you have medical conditions, if you're on any sort of medications that are going to affect anything, then go ahead and let us know so we can take that into consideration when we're talking and have that sort of perspective. So, for us, it is the same thing as if you had a broken leg. It is the same thing. So those things all have equal weight, and we consider all those things when making recommendations or having any advice around relationships, but they are also there, and we refer back and forth. So if something gets out of the scope of our practice of what Tammy's talking about, or it's not something that you want to talk about with us, then we can definitely refer you over. 5 per calendar questions for us. All right, then make sure that if you want to go to Rhonda's talk here on November 7th, that you go and sign up for that on your dashboard.